Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Daniel George on. Say hello, Daniel.
Hey, hello, good to be here.
Awesome. And you are actually backer selected from the Gaming with Edo Season 4 Kickstarter, so excited to have you on. You launched a Kickstarter today, right?
Today,
Today. I was like, you still want to have this Skype call? You're like, yeah. So you launched Treasure Hunter on Kickstarter, off to a healthy start. Uh,
Treasure Mountain,
Thank you. What did I say? Treasure something. Treasure
Treasure
Mountain.
Hunter,
Treasure
Treasure
Mountain.
Hunter,
So
Treasure Mountain is the name of the game.
Treasure
Yes,
Mountain. I'll put a link in the description
Mountain.
just in case. But Treasure Mountain. This is your second Kickstarter,
hmm Yes,
and as I was saying, you're moving along. You've got about 11,000, coming on 11,000 of 30. So big first day, but also a big mountain
a big mountain to climb.
to
Yes,
climb.
absolutely.
And my wife's just like, come on, man.
Come on, it is a 30-day climb. It's
Yeah,
okay. I
it's
know.
okay. And the first game you did was Dragon Brew last year,
Correct.
but that's
Exactly
not
at
your
this time last year.
first game. I mean, you designed games earlier than that. So just to kick things off, I like to do a little origin story when I focused on the board gaming scene. But tell us about you and a designer and what you've done and how you came to starting your own company and making Kickstarters.
Yeah. So I'm wearing it today. My origins were Dungeons and Dragons. When I was in late 70s, early 80s, in junior high school and high school, I was all about role playing games. And I think anybody who plays a lot of role playing games, especially if you GM like me, I feel like that's the fundamentals of game designing because you're designing an experience for your party. Storytelling, and we would obviously especially at that time with advanced D&D, the mechanics were not very great of D&D in my opinion, so we would kind of do our own rules for things, and I think that planted some seeds. I did some board games as well, the old Avalon Hill stuff like Panzer Blitz, um speed tactics, but those are just the old shit games. And in college in the early 90s, I kind of the end of the 90s, actually, it was the end of my college, would be early 90s. I started to be interested in more and more board games. So I played Warhammer 40K, and there was kind of those model games. So I did a lot of miniatures and historical games. I had a really big interest in those. So I started to design my own rule sets for those. I did this crazy game called Bloodthirsty Capitalist Backstabbing Hogs, which took the parts from 3 different sets of Axis and Allies, and it was just an obscene game. But again, it was all like for myself. And design is always, my design history has always been about for me. I always think I felt like design something that I never had any intention to publish. I did used to write articles for Space Gamer magazine about Shadowrun, which I think I have a signed Shadowrun art cover right here.
Very cool.
For Space Gamer magazine. I got a whole $90 an article, but hey, I was paid. And then at that point, I kind of took a break from design, got married, had a lot of time at home, and decided, again, just for fun, to try to start to do some designs. I guess the 2 that got published were Roadkill Rally and Order Up, and those were picked up by Z-Man in 10 years ago, I think 2008 or 2007. No intention of publishing them. They actually Order Up won the KublaCon Design contest, and that was
Right.
how and they're like, hey, you want to get it published? I never thought about it. Never, honestly. It was something I made for my daughter and I to play. And then since then, I mean, I've probably made 20 games myself. Never really, intended to publish any of them. Again, I'm probably more than half the stuff I do is just for me.
Well, and so to bump ahead though, at some point with your first Kickstarter, that shifts. So at some point, you're like,
Right.
what was that shift moment for you?
I tell you, because my experience of selling as a designer, selling my design to Z-Man Games, as much as I like Z-Man Games, you lost a little bit of creative control, right? You have to give it up, and there are some things that were changed about the game a little bit. And as a designer, you don't have a lot of control over that, theming, some changes, stuff like that. And I guess I wanted some more control, so I started to look 5 years ago into self-publishing. Well, I made longer than that actually, and it was just impossible. It was just the amount of quantities. Did not have the Kickstarter didn't exist, at least the way it is now. Didn't have the infrastructure in place to distribute your games. The quantities had to be huge. I was looking at 40, 50K minimum investment. Not, game stores were dying at that time. You remember this was pre 2008.
Right.
Game stores weren't doing great. I decided financially did not make a lot of sense. So 3 years ago, a group of friends and I had Treasure Mountain and Dragon Brew. In fact, Treasure Mountain was actually done first. Treasure Mountain was actually designed 7 years ago, which is insane. And I kind of sat on it. A couple publishers were going to pick it up, but kind of fell out of their schedule. And I decided, you know what, we should just do our own. I mean, my dad owned a print shop. I'm a project manager in my day job. A lot of the friends in my group were all professionals, and we felt like with our skill set, especially with some marketing people, that we could probably do our own. And it was never intended really for money making per se. It was all about our love for the hobby, and we just wanted. And our philosophy always was we want to make the games that we want to play.
Sure.
It's simple as that. So Dragon Brew came out. We had a lot of fun with that. We exceeded our promised deadlines. The product quality was good. Financially, we haven't done the books. It's about break even, which we felt great.
Not uncommon.
Totally fine.
And so Dragon Brew, you said, was about a $50,000 campaign, right?
Yes.
And
correct.
What about how many backers was that?
How many copies of the game? It might have been 889, maybe about that. I don't know, maybe 900.
And so you probably did like a 1,500 unit run, or how many?
We actually did 1,200.
Ooh.
Had a pallet fall over on the ship and lost a bunch of games and filed insurance claims. Horrible. Yeah, I mean about 90 of them, but I always do it extra. So, and the rest have since been sold. I think Cool Stuff has 5 copies left, and our own inventory we have about 44 left. So we feel like that was a successful run. And I have a few copies here in my hair next to me. Anyway, so yeah, and we decided we already knew when we did Dragon Brew that Treasure Mountain was going to happen. It was like, look, if we do this and we fail, it's only money, you know what I mean, and time. And we figured, if it wasn't a good experience, we weren't going to do it. We made the decision halfway in the summertime after we funded and the printing was going great that we were going to go ahead and do Treasure Mountain. Right. So we learned a lot of things from doing Dragon Brew the first time, some paths we wouldn't take again with some of the ads and the way we did things. So here we are. We decided to do it again.
Well, so let me ask you some specific questions there, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, you it's almost been exactly a year, right, since you did that first Kickstarter. So, being a Kickstarter creator, and we're in 2018. You're sort of you're in the front of the pack. There have been some titles that launched in January, but more and more people. When you look at your experience, you haven't done the whole campaign, but prepping for and launching today versus prepping for and launching 1 year ago, what are some of the key differences you're seeing on Kickstarter right now?
I would say there are differences in a lot of areas. One, the community, I think, is stronger. There are so many people that have done Kickstarters out there. The community to provide support to fellow Kickstarter people is huge. And I've leveraged that. I try to give advice. There's about 4 or 5 of us. We're always in communication. We're launching in the next few months. We're going to try to share a ship from China when we have our games printed. Differences in the market is there are vastly more people doing Kickstarters now than a year ago. I don't know if you recall, the first few months of the year were considered to be the dead months, and now I cannot believe how many fantastic projects there actually are. So the competition is higher, you know what I mean? And that's probably the biggest difference. I mean, we feel like we're better prepared and we have more momentum, and we're doing about the same as we did last year with Dragon Brew. And that's still a win as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, well, and I've had that experience over the years where just being at parity in terms of preparedness. That bar keeps going up, and you really are seeing. Since I do the Kickstarter previews, I can just tell. It's like, oh, I've already got like most of the weeks in February. I'm dropping somewhere between 2 to 6 Kickstarter previews that each a week, and I'm not even that. I don't even do that many. I mean, it's just the volume's there, and I think there's just no, like, it's just going to get busier and busier as more and more companies come in, more and more people are going to do it when their game's ready to go. And so you said you talked about the community, and you obviously talked about the market. Are there any other things that pop out to you that are different, whether technology or platform or?
Sure. I think that things like Backer Kit and those kind of software to help you manage your campaign after the fact. I used to be a database programmer, so I wrote my own, app to use for Dragon Brew. And in retrospect, it was probably not the best move. I ended up spending so much time on this app, and it ended up being not even as good as something I could get off, from the people. So we are going to use either BackerKit or one of those other for this campaign. That's probably one of the biggest things. Yeah, I think that's probably something. That's a tool. Oh, and Quartermaster, which is what started by from offshoot of Cool Stuff. They're doing Kickstarter fulfillment, and there are other companies that do it. But I think they've done a phenomenal job. That they also have this kind of retail part and these relationships throughout the world. And I can't say it. They're awesome. We had such a great experience with them that they're new. We were one of their first projects they actually shipped. I have nothing but positive things to say about them.
They are one of the leading U.S.-based fulfillment organizations right now in terms of being on everyone's list for consideration. There's probably 3 or 4 now that are sort of becoming a leader in those categories, and then you have the international solutions in which they can do as well. But they definitely have some advantages as part of the Cool Stuff Inc. network.
It's great.
And so, looking at, I'm just trying to think on the Kickstarter side. So, you sort of you're dealing with and reacting with this market, being a second time Kickstarter. Just personally, what are some of the things that maybe used to freak you out? Like, what are some of the things how are you weathered and salty now? Like, what are the things that don't bug you like they did in the first one? And if you're talking to a first creator, be like, don't worry about X or Y.
Yeah, boy, that's awesome. Because last year I'm not a young man. I've been a project manager for years and years. Been in the software industry.
Like 37. Come on. Man.
Oh, I love you. I'm subscribed to you now. No, I was surprised it affected me as much as it did last year. Number one, people leaving. They back you and they leave, and you're like, why did you leave? And people come and go sometimes, and it bugged me. I wanted to follow up with every single one and go, why? What can I do to get you back? Right. Which you really can't do, and that's something this year I'm just like, it is what it is. I think patience, and I've always been pretty patient, and that's something I think anybody who's doing a Kickstarter is patience and consistency, and just do something every day. And we have a plan. We had a plan last year, and I think we're even better this year. I mean, it's great that it's me and people in my gaming group to all do this together, and it makes getting support from your wife or your friends to do this with you makes a big difference. Yeah. I've always been good at delegating tasks. I think being able to delegate things off, take some of that load off your back really helps. Because I think I've met some people doing Kickstarters and they put everything on their back and they're frantic and they're running around. To me, we're doing this for fun, and we're doing this because we love the community and we love games. If we're not having a good time and we're not making a lot of money, then why are we doing it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and okay.
Go ahead. Oh, and can I add one more thing? Is the other thing was just on the back end part, is that be prepared for things to change. Man, the paper shortage came up, and cardboard prices shot up. So by the time we had our quote, even though quotes only last for 30 days, time we printed paper our paper cost went up. I think our printing cost went up 8%. So put that fluff in your model. And
No,
I
and
did that
it's a
last year.
real
Yeah,
deal when you deal with stuff like that. I'm
absolutely.
very concerned about some sort of out of the blue 30% tariff across the board coming through in the next year that tanks everybody.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I mean, the whole Brexit thing, that's a
Yeah.
big concern because we use Games Quest in UK, right, to distribute through Europe.
As do
Um,
I.
yeah, and so we actually have a third Kickstarter we're going to do this year, which is a standalone card game called Dragon Brew Oktoberfest. So it's a card game version, 20-minute version designed to be played in a bar. Super water resistant cards, large
Oh,
cards
fun.
can be read in darkness, right? Super fun game. In fact, we just played it all weekend and drank a lot of beer. So we're actually printing that at the same time we're printing Treasure Mountain, even though we've not done a Kickstarter for it yet, which is crazy, a little bit crazy, but it's a cheaper game to manufacture. So obviously we have a little bit more wiggle room so that we're able to make sure that we get that game delivered in September and October. So there's no issues with hitting 2019 and having any Brexit issues. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so we're, which is a little bit of a risk, obviously, in our case. There's obviously some cost savings in freight. But that's a decision we made because the UK market was so important to us. We had 37% of our sales were in Europe for Dragon Brew, which is a lot higher than I thought
Oh
they
yeah,
were
I
going
mean
to be.
that's a big board gaming market.
Yeah. So that's something we did, is that we're printing another game at the same time, just to kind of be prepared to get around those external factors.
And to categorize it a little differently, one of the things that I've observed as Kickstarter creators go from being their first campaign to their second or their third is over time you come to appreciate how much of your bottom line turns into margins and turns into margins on the printing and margins on the shipping and margins over here and margins over there and margins over there and how much did I pay that guy? And as you're trying to do more and make more product and get great games that you love, right? It's not that you're just trying to make money. You still want to make great games,
Absolutely.
but managing that is sort of what gives you the flexibility to print something early or gives you the flexibility to make something look better. And it's a very cash-strapped, cash-managed business. It's not like digital games where you launch it and it can expand. You really have to feed the market, and presumably with your first game, you're going to have to go through the conversation: should we reprint? What's the risk? Are people going to buy it? How are we going to pay for it? Are we going to do another Kickstarter? You have to sort of work through all those different parameters to come up with come to conclusion there. So one of the things I wanted to ask you though,
Yeah.
and I do sometimes turn down games depending, but I don't think it was in this case. I don't think I've heard much about your game that's up on Kickstarter now, Treasure Mountain. What, just in a nutshell, because I'm curious, I'm looking at the Kickstarter page, which, it looks pretty cool. What, in a nutshell, like, what's cool about that game? Like, from a mechanics design perspective, like, what does it do that no other game's doing or that you find really enjoyable?
Well, maybe if I tell you how it was born, it tells you it was born out of frustration. I love worker placement games. Love them, always have.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? It's literally my favorite type of game. And I believe this is a long time ago. I was playing Lords of Waterdeep, and and I love Lords of Waterdeep. I have a good time with it, especially with the expansions. But I hate being denied spaces. So I feel like it's hard to plan your turn, and I feel like the only player interaction is denial of resources, right? That's the main thing that happens in that game, which is fine. That's part of the thing, and timing, and nobody have to get, and that's great. So Treasure Mountain, the core of it was for me, and other games have bumping, was, look, I want to have a game, and when I came up with the bumping mechanic, I know any other games even had it, was I want a game where dwarves are placed from the shortest beard to the longest beard. Okay. And first you place all your ones, your short beards. Then everybody goes and places their twos. If your beard is longer than somebody else's beard in a space, you bump them, you take the action, and the person that got bumped immediately gets to take any other action on the board. So you're giving someone an extra turn. Right. So that's something that's a pretty big benefit. So it's all about, sometimes part of the game is you want to go somewhere where you're going to get bumped to get an extra turn.
Sure.
So it's that other layer. You can deny folks as well. But that's the first part. So the first one was about, I just love that
Dwarven
idea.
seniority.
Dwarven seniority, and in fact, we played over the weekend. I still love it. We have such a great time. But I'll tell you, at first the game was not good. It sucked, because I'll tell you why. So the basic, I guess the premise of the game was, you're all dwarves. You're mining out this mountain. You're trying to collect gems, sell gems, earn gold. Whoever has the most gold gems at the end of the game wins, right? It suffered from kind of, it's very mathy and very economical, right? And it needed that little twist. And actually, Kingsburg really inspired me. Kingsburg has that monster thing, right? At the end of that time period, monster's going to come. So I decided, why not put dragons inside of the mine? So there are certain actions on the board, certain spaces on the board that are the best spaces. Juicy. However, every time you use those spaces, there's a chance that the dragon aggression goes up. When the dragon aggression hits the top, the dragons attack everybody. So there's luck mitigation. You can buy axes. You can prepare. But if the dragons beat whoever the dragons beat, they take a portion of their gold, a portion of their gems. So it's this constant thing between offense to defense, the dragon. Do I want to make the dragon come or not the dragon come? You can play the game and play a dragon strategy. You get points if you're the player that defeats the dragon the most.
And so what's the I'm just like looking at it while we're talking. What's the
Sure.
sort of player minecart thing going on in front of each player?
You mean the mines?
I guess they're mines.
Yeah.
Mines and tracks.
It's also a tile. So when you build your mine, you're actually laying tiles. You're building out your mine as you tunnel your way into. That's the other portion, is that it's a tile placement. You're trying to kind of lay groups of certain colors to really mine your mine as efficiently as possible. You're balancing, mixing other colors of gems. Special rooms that allow you to cheat in the game or modify the rules in the game. The other last aspect is the king. There's kind of achievements throughout the game that filter through that you can claim, but you don't have to turn anything in for. So there's a thing that says, like, if you have 9 red gems, you get 5 points.
Sure.
So there's this thing where you want to hold on to gems. If you hold too much, then you're going to miss your opportunity to sell them in the market, or if you hold too much, the dragon may come and steal them. So there's always this constant balancing what you want to do. What else is cool? Another thing I'd like is all play. There's a lot of spaces that when you do it, everybody does it. So it's about timing your action so you can do an all play action other people can't. And Rado did a run through for the game, and that's something that he hit on that was right on. It's really about timing all your actions to try to get as much as you can, as many extra turns as possible, while denying your opponents. Has a very high level of player interaction.
And how did he? I haven't seen his run through. And by the way,
Sure.
just even him doing a run through requires him to. He really needs to like something.
Yeah.
But how did he handle? What did he think about the player denial? Did he enjoy it, or was it a?
I'll tell you what he said. So, because we communicated with him quite a bit, he loved the aspect of the game about the bumping and the extra turns, and he loved that. He and his wife, as a 2-player game, and the game when you can play it 2 to 4,
Sure.
2-player game, it's really cutthroat. It really is. My wife and I know we love it. That's our thing.
Right. No, I just asked because that's sort of like his thing.
It's not his thing. So he said this. It's amazing. It's fun. It stressed us out. It was too. To us, him saying that is a negative in his mind, but for me and my group, that's a positive. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an opinion. And he was right on about some things about it, and that was one thing. Yeah, certain people are not going to like it.
He plays a lot of games, right? He has some good context.
He plays a lot of games.
So, all right. So we talked about the Kickstarter some. We talked about the specific game, sort of the origin, and when you look at it seems like you're piecing together just the continuation of brick over brick. We're going to make this game, and then we'll make one more, and we're going to go. We did these heavier games, and now I want to make a card game. Do you feel
Hmm.
like at this point you actually have a product roadmap, Mr. Product Manager, or are you still sort of like, well, I just make games and we figure it out as we go? How
It's
much
so
of a
funny. We had
company is August Games right now?
well, we like to get together, play games, and drink beer, and we like to design games. We actually, yeah, do we have a roadmap for growing this? We would like to, but we understand that this is a patient process, right? And you have to get that one game to really, to build an audience. So our goal was this: look, let's continue making games that we love and are fun. So far they've been my designs. We're going to take some other designs, some other people I know. I don't want to have to be the only person doing the design. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of pressure on me because I like to take my time. I mean, I spent 7 years doing Treasure Mountain. So, I mean, I spent 5 years doing Road Cal Rally. So I take a lot of time. Um, so yeah, what's our roadmap? Our roadmap is that we have in our hopper, probably if we continue to succeed and we continue to agree. Every time we finish a Kickstarter, we go, okay, are we going to continue to do this, or are we going to dissolve? So so far we're continuing to go forward. We have games for the next 2 years lined up.
Not bad.
So we have Brew Kingdom, which is in the Dragon Brew universe, which is, and by the way, and Treasure Mountain is in the Dragon Brew universe as well, because beer is a component of the game. The components of the game are beer, gems, gold, and axes. That's the perfect
Have you
life.
played Vikings Gone Wild?
No, I would love to play
You
it.
should probably play
I
Vikings
need
Gone
to
Wild.
back it. I didn't back it, and I regret
I
backing
think it
it.
went to. I think you can get a copy of it at retail. It's funny because
Yeah,
that game's like gold and beer. It's like the currency in that game.
that's it. Yeah, well, I think dwarves are kind of Viking-like, right? Um, but yeah, and then we have Brew Kingdom, which we tested over the weekend, which is an area control game. So it's like, so Dragon Brew, you're running a little individual brewery, and it's a world where war is replaced with the brewing of beer. So if you had a conflict, you're a dwarf. Instead of going to war, you're gonna have a brew festival. So this is taking it one step, where it's an area control game, and so there's dozens of breweries on the map, and you're controlling markets and areas in the board. So it's totally different than any other game we do. It's a game. It's actually based on the mechanics of an old game I made called STD, which is everybody's a sexually transmitted disease fighting over the body of a sailor on shore leave, which is hilarious, but the mechanics were too serious. It didn't match the theme. Plus, it's not really the best theme, because who wants to be herpes? Who wants to
Well,
be herpes?
I mean, there have been some games that have focused in on those things.
Correct. Anyway,
Um,
sorry, that's a very long answer to a short question.
hey, it's fine. I mean, it really does speak to clearly your passion for the games, right? Which it's about is to be really enjoying and thinking about and experiencing these products. Um, Yeah, and I think that really sort of rounds it out. It's exciting to see the Kickstarter move, and again, anyone watching, do everyone a favor and check it out at least, even if it's not your thing.
Please,
Yeah,
hey, check it out.
hey,
Share it
back
with
for
your
a dollar share.
friends.
It's always wonderful. Crazy to get you launch day, and my favor back to you is I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to post it tomorrow morning. So this will post Tuesday morning.
Thank you.
And so hopefully get some awareness, but also just again, I mean, we're local to each other. I think we may have bumped into each other at a KublaCon or something like that.
You're up in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think
Yeah,
just at Kubla, perhaps.
yeah. KubaCon. It's funny. We Facebook friended, and we have 40 of the same friends, which is the highest number I've ever had for somebody. And we know because the West Coast game design community is not as huge as the East Coast, and I think we know a lot of the same folks.
Yeah, yeah, and I think to some degree at the same time, I sort of because of the review stuff and otherwise, I'm an open friender, so I have a lot of friends who are
Me too.
like, no. Anyway, thanks for being on. Thanks
No,
everyone for
thanks for having
watching. Super awesome meeting you, and I thank you to the backer who suggested interviewing you. I thought about it. I was like, should I give their names or not? And I said, you know what? I'm not. I'm just the backer support. And
No, it's cool. It was like a gift he gave to me. It was a backer of Dragon Brew, and he's like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm like, "Sure, I think
sure,
it's great.
why not?
I'll totally do it. And I hope to see you at KublaCon this year. You can find
Oh
us.
yeah. Well, are you gonna have a table?
We are not going to get a table. Here's the problem. KubbleCon is so fun. I love KubbleCon. I've been to Gen Con, all the KubbleCon's my favorite con. But it's the time where I game. I mean, I demo, but I don't want to work a table.
No,
I don't want to do any
I
of
know
that.
what it's like. Well,
yeah.
Wonderful for you. For me, I will have a table. I should have copies of both Sunset Over Water and Legendary Creatures
I'll
in
come by.
hand.
I'll come
And
by.
so,
What?
and you probably, I mean, you might like both, but Legendary Creatures is like a pretty special, meaty game. So, definitely worth checking out. But so I'll be there. So you're pretty easy to walk in. I'll be splitting a booth with Thomas Denmark, and all of his great stuff. So anyway, thanks for being on. Good luck tonight. Tomorrow, get some rest if you can, and we'll be tracking the campaign.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.